Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about how I like to control the game of chess. I'm a 1900, so I'm not the best at it, but I think I've got a decent idea about how to suppress my opponent's pieces and just get a good control of the center and good mobility and piece coordination, all these good things. So let's get into one game in which I received a very nice compliment from my opponent in the chat. So here I went for this. My opponent plays the Sicilian. I counter with the Alapin, trying to just get 2 pawns in the center. And here I just keep developing naturally, and I always think development solves so many problems which you don't yet know you have. Uh, just the knights controlling, all these squares. It's just, yeah, it's hard to comprehend. Like I can't comprehend it. All the positive things that does. I just know when I develop, I I have more options and I win more games when I develop properly. So I take here. Not sure if it's the best move, but here he captures this. This I did spend some time calculating because obviously the queen's semi-hanging. If we can ever get rid of this pin, right? So I thought about stuff like check. So I looked at this check, block, and then sacking my queen to win his queen. I looked at that line, but I thought maybe he just goes takes, and then he has this threat, and it didn't look great. So I elected to play it a little bit different to that, and just developed another piece, and turn the evaluation off. And then coming out with a queen, maybe threatening this. Now, this wasn't the engine critical line because black does have a way to defend, and I'm sort of just moving my queen out onto the edge of the board early on, which isn't normally the best. You're probably better off just developing other pieces. But anyway, I went for this, and I don't hate it because in terms of like practical chances of winning, I'm attacking a weak pinned knight, which I love. I'm also pressuring this and threatening tactics where I now take the bishop, uh, which is just hanging right now because of course the knight's pinned. So he takes, realizing his bishop's under some pressure there, and I recapture. Now he castles, I castle. And then he plays this move, which I'm not sure about. Uh, the more you play chess, I know you guys are following the channel, like playing more and more, and you get a feel for when things are a bit clunky, and this feels clunky to me. Like the knight's under a lot of pressure. This knight is sort of loose. I know the queen technically defends, but the queen's like the worst piece you can defend with. You much rather defend with a pawn than a queen. Uh, or more generally, do something with the least important piece. Yeah. So here I try and undermine this whole clunky setup, which is it's all tied together with the move c4, hitting the queen, trying to disrupt the center. And also, if we look at this position, uh, my biggest structural weakness, where is it, guys? Let me know. Do you see it in terms of my pawn structure? My biggest weakness. Yeah, I think you've got it. So just this pawn, right? On the open file, so we can imagine develop, rook over, and they pressure this backwards pawn here. So it's good to resolve this anyway. Never mind disrupting their queen and separating their knights a bit. So now this knight is hanging. So I'm already looking at tactics like, do I have push and then takes, and then maybe pawn is hitting knight and queen is hitting the other knight. So see this alignment issue between queen and knight. And that might seem a bit, oh, how did you see that? But if you always think in terms of loose pieces, that becomes much easier to see that sort of idea if you just think the knight is undefended. So takes. I mean, I honestly played this and I didn't realize how nice this move was, but of course takes, and this is a fork. Yeah. To be honest, guys, I just wanted to win the pawn, and I saw that I had some pressure on the knight at the end. I didn't actually see that the rook was hanging, but Still an alright move to win a pawn. And yeah, my opponent, seeing that he was going to get his pieces forked at the end of it, tries to complicate things. And now this is where you've just got to find like one good move. And because right now we're up a piece. He's not recaptured. So best move for white here, guys. Let me know in the comments. Did you see this? What are your instincts? So, I mean, I looked at this. Queen back, queen here. Something to attack the knight. Because then if they take, we take, and we're still up a piece. But there's one square which is just way better than the rest. And that's a bit of a domination square here. The queen dominates the knight. It can't move anywhere. And of course, crucial. So the crucial thing is this square here, e2 with check, and then they could take the bishop and reclaim the piece. And white would still be better here because the knight's offside, and we could probably still trap the knight with a move like. I mean, actually, if here knight just takes bishop, so we probably want to play something like this: bishop to b2, so that although the knight gets out. So maybe this, defending this square and stopping the knight jumping out, and then trapping the knight. We don't want to allow this offside piece to just trade itself off. So, exerting control. I developed this way, hitting the rook. See, now they've got this square to escape to. But now I cover that square with the queen. So part of controlling the game is just suppressing all the squares for your opponent, which I think I do a good job here with the queen. And defending that pawn as well with the knight and queen. So they there counterattack my bishop. I think they were going into a bit of an engine line here, but I'd move back in that case. But back into the game, we just got this. So he simply just took and I took. And now I am up a clean piece. But it's still scary, as we'll see in a second. So my opponent actually complimented this game. He said like good move. I'll show you. Said like good move. What was it? Wow. And he said that was total control. So I was pretty pleased with the little compliment there, which is you never get that in chess. You never get that. Yeah. So I don't do that to people. To be fair, I don't say, "Oh, amazing." It's very hard to have the like self-control and humility to actually compliment your opponent who's just beaten you. So yeah, respect to that guy. So I do waste a move here and lose a little bit of advantage. So I hit the rook and then I waste a move coming back. My voice has just dropped like an octave. And I'm, of course, lining up a checkmate threat. So I see that he was going to want to play this. And this is a bit, part of controlling the game is understanding the psychology of the opponent. So we're up a piece. So he's going to want to not trade pieces. And he's going to want to open up lines to attack. So I can sort of feel this move coming. So in preparation of that, I line up my own counter threat. So if this, boom, we're threatening mate, and we get a free move with this pawn. So he has to stop the mate threat, and then we can take or try and reinforce somehow. Seemed to me that there was a lot of pressure on this pawn, so I just took. And this was a slight concession. This gave up actually a little bit of control in this moment. Even though I won a pawn, it was opening up his bishop and potential mate threats here. But I know I'm still better as long as I play correctly. So I just keep activating my pieces further. And he plays this move, rook over, baiting me that if I take, he coordinates on g2 with checkmate. But these sort of baiting moves, he's playing for tricks, really, isn't he? And if I don't do that, then he's just got this sort of hanging rook. So, for example, a very crisp way to show that would just be like kick the queen. And try it. If we can dislodge the queen, maybe we could take something like that. So here I just push, just threatening to promote. King defends that square, and queen over now. And I thought this actually wasn't a good move, but I thought this was nice. I was trying to have even more control in the game by attacking the bishop and the rook at the same time, which is normally a sort of winning idea if you can do that. And defend the knight at the same time. Now, I think they had to bail out here and probably just take the knight and rescue the rook. But they come here with the bishop, and I just taking the rook here. And here we're up 6 points of material, so let's just simplify. Give away a pawn there, throw in the in-between move check, which is further controlling the game by pushing a pawn up the board. They recapture. And here I actually would have liked to have seen this move. Something like that to control this square and allow the simple pushing of the pawn. I instead developed the rook, which is also understandable. Rook on the open line, like, it's fair enough. But now this bishop sort of lodged in and pressures here all the time. So queen has to defend knight, because if queen moves, they just take, and I cannot recapture because of the pin. So I still was a little bit awkward here. But I kick the queen now, and at that point, I think that was when my opponent said, yeah, good move. He's lost his threats of checkmate, and now I could probably just take. By throwing this check first, and then here I thought about this. But I thought this looked really uncomfortable. Threatening mate and pinning the knight to my queen. And I just thought that's not worth a pawn. Maybe there's some way out of this. Actually, yeah, I could have played this, couldn't I? Pinning their queen to their king. But, you know, when looking ahead in the calculation bank, I didn't want to introduce any weirdness or any complexity like that, even though this would have been great for me. So I decided to not take the pawn there, try and do something else. And then here I decided to just take with the queen, keep it simple. And luckily my opponent trades off. And then here the only thing I have to do is put my pieces on dark squares and the bishop will be ineffective. So this is where I had 40 seconds on the clock and I'm just attacking this pawn and then gobbling all the rest of the pawns. And it did get a little bit close on time. I had 1 second at the end. And yeah, I mean, attacking the bishop. Gonna try push this when we can. And eventually the king just comes up to escort the pawn himself. And here, when you've got these two pawns like this, something I recommend is just give away one of them. Because when you get a structure like that, you control so much space, it's a little bit easy to stalemate. And the pawns aren't very mobile. So sometimes just give the front one away and then... Because that allowed me to then push this pawn, come in. Yeah. And this is when I had 5 seconds left and my opponent was like, wow. But yeah. Coming in. Check. I'm trying to do it fast because this is the sort of speed it was at. This, and it was all pre-moves, but I went this side, of course, missing mate in 1 with a pre-move. Because I wasn't quite sure where the king was going to be. And I didn't want the king to slip away, which would have been awkward. So I thought, box the king in, so he's got to come back into my mating net. And yeah, finally delivering mate. But yeah, quite nice to get a compliment from my opponent saying I was controlling the game. And yeah, I hope that gives you guys a few tips. If you're beginners out there, maybe you can use some of those concepts we talked about to yeah, control your opponents and move up the ranks. Yeah, like and subscribe. See you next time. Cheers.